Echo 5, do you copy? Echo 5.
Echo 2, good morning. Nice of you to drop by.
Feeling alright, sir? Thought we lost you.
Right now, I feel like I can take on this whole podcast myself.
I know what you mean. Ready to send that transmission to Echo Base?
Yes, sir. R10, patch through.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. Today we are finally delving into the finale. After last week's episode, we are getting back to, I want to say, the main characters of the series, like the main part of the story, whatever, I don't know, a little confused, but here we are back on where we left on episode 6 with May breathing and not May, Osha breathing. And I just gotta say, like, I feel like they're trying too hard to do certain things. And I think they're trying to replicate or kind of update the Vader breathing with Osha. And so when they did in this, it just sounded super awkward. And I was like, guys, just no. Leave Vader's breathing as that iconic sound for Star Wars.
Yeah. It was... as the person that's tried to be most positive over this entire run, that clearly lost it last week with episode 7, I got back into this one and I was just like, what? Like, firstly, I'm going to preface this by saying, at time of recording, there's no confirmed news of season 2. So question marks are all over the place, and red flags, and interchangeable twins, and a certain cameo at the end.
If they do a season 2, let's not bring in the current writers and showrunners. Let's get a new set of eyes on this.
Yeah, this was very much it was almost like an alternate reality version of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I could see that.
Sorry, that broke me. Yep.
and that's why I'm saying, like, if they're going to do a season 2, which I'm curious to see, but they need to bring in different people to write it and run it. Because for me, it was kind of like the sequels. Like, the sequels had a lot of hype, but just didn't hit. And especially with characters like Rey, who should have been a lot more well-written and didn't get that opportunity just because they're trying to push something else instead. And now we're getting a Rey movie, which hopefully has a newer mind and a newer view on it.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, this episode, visually, again, like, top tier. That's as far as it goes. I mean, there's certain parts of it which, we'll get into as we're going through the sort of episode, but the reveal, I'm going to call it the reveal, of a certain Legends character.
He's technically not Legends because he's mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. That so he is canon. He is canon.
But you would need to really know who he is to know who he is. And it's like, Fluffy's looking really confused.
Do I not know?
Which I wanted to take some time out for, like, people that are just tuning in to Star Wars that don't know him. Darth Plagueis is Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious's master, and we learn about him in Revenge of the Sith. And if you read the Legends books, I know this whole time because I didn't really know too much about it. I've been doing some research on him too. And I was like, nah, Darth Plagueis is probably a kid at this point or not even born yet. But when you read Darth Plagueis, the book, Palpatine is talking to him, and they do mention that Darth Plagueis is well over 100 years by the time he's training Palpatine. So I guess it would make sense that he would be alive at this time. So maybe Dark Tenebris and Venomous already happened. And maybe Plagueis is trying to find that next apprentice. And so it's not going to be Khmer, obviously. I mean, it's going to lead up to Palpatine at some point. And I just really hope that they do it in a good way. But Darth Plagueis... No, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was this is one of the issues that I had with the episode, that we're now having to explain to people, you know, we as fans are having to explain to other fans who this character is if they're newer fans to Star Wars. And I think something like that should have been left on the cutting room floor if there's no announcement of season 2, because it will go nowhere.
So he is well over 100 years at this point, from what we learned from the Darth Plagueis book. And we can probably just assume that all these apprentices that are here are going to fit. Well, obviously, going to fail and lead up to Palpatine at some point. And I really don't want to see that on screen because, I mean, I don't think we really need to see that. But if we get a little bit more of Darth Plagueis, that'd be cool. But
yes, I think we've had enough Palpatine. Like,
definitely.
We know who he is. Like, we know how manipulative he is. We don't need to see him in his younger years
being trained.
Yeah.
I would be okay if we got like a tiny glimpse of him as a kid or whatever. Whatever.
Kind of like what the dude did with Luke at a younger age, like just glimpses of him, like Rebels or Could be a little too much, but
that would be enough for me. Then, now that I've seen this, what do you guys think about the design of the character? Because I think it looks really cool.
It looks very similar to how he was drawn, I believe, in the comics and the books. So I do really like his character design. But as far as canon, we don't know too much about his character other than him training Palpatine. And so I know in the Darth Plagueis book, he is alive up into the Phantom Menace, which I did not know. And he was actually afraid of Anakin. And it's because of him, Palpatine trying to manipulate the Force to create a dark side user that at that point, the Force retaliated and created Anakin instead. And so Darth Plagueis sees Anakin and has a vision seeing him in a robotic suit and gets scared because he realizes that this kid is going to change the galaxy immensely. And so Darth Plagueis didn't want to go near Anakin.
I feel redeemed a little bit because I was sure Khmer was not the master.
You did think Indara was, but you were right about Khmer being the apprentice.
Yeah.
Like, you did not budge on that.
Exactly. I had thoughts on who the master would be. Darth Plagueis being the master, great. I am happy that we have an answer on that because that was going to be one of my points. But it was because of my God knows what I was thinking at that point that I missed that, and that actually makes the episode so much better for me. Because imagine this, until we talked, I thought that was a question that was unanswered. And imagine not having a season 2. Because at the moment, if we still have this many questions, okay, it's really still not that good, but also not even knowing who was the real bad behind all of this, that would have majorly not good.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
have a
mean,
good
he is a Sith Lord, hiding in the shadows and using other people to do his dirty work, basically.
I just want to say though that as good as it was to include Plagueis, because we've really only heard about him unless you have read the Legends material.
Mm-hmm.
Totally unnecessary to be included at the same time. Like, it was a reveal that did nothing. Like, it didn't progress the story. I would have been happier if Plagueis came out and then spoke to Kamea and Osha and actually
Yeah.
did something with the story, not just that reveal that is blatantly setting up a season 2 that we may never get.
And that's what I said in the last episode too, because I remember, Sam, you probably will remember me saying this, is like, if they're going to reveal him during the episode, they need to do something like that that's going to push the story, because it's going to, like, for fans that don't know Darth Plagueis too well, we you have to come to our podcast or listen to other people's reviews to be able to understand Darth Plagueis and his character, who his master was, how he killed his master, and how he became Darth Plagueis the Wise, and all this other nonsense. Like, I think it would have been a better reveal as a post-credit scene rather than inside the episode itself.
That I could agree. That post-credit reveal might be better, but I still believe we needed a reveal like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because
100%.
honestly, until this moment that you guys told me we saw him, it was one of my biggest complaints. Like, where was this big bad? I did not get that answer because I missed it myself. And I hope that's not the case for a lot of fans, because it's a very small moment, and for other people who actually are not that well versed in the Star Wars myth, everything, that they don't know who this creepy Kaminoan looking dude is. But yeah, that's I am very happy that there is an answer to this. And we have to be fair, the show was planned to go more than one season. So they did not plan, of course, how maybe in the second season things will make a lot of sense if there's a second season, but there is no way that you can plan to have. I mean, it would be a perfect show if everything could have been tied up perfectly within a season that can stand alone in case there is not a second one. And we know that that is utopia, because shows that are that good always get a second season.
I think that they just thought they were going. I think that they just thought that they were going to do so well. They weren't planning on it having so much backlash, and it's not so much of. I know a lot of people are talking about the wokeness agenda of it, but for me, it's all about the pacing and the storytelling and dialogue and character development. Like, I'm looking at all the things that just were wrong with the show. It's just like we talked about, like 5 and 6 built up to the finale. Episode 7 just kind of came out of nowhere, and we talked about it last week, how we thought episode 7 and 3 should have been basically back to back or a longer episode and just done one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel very underwhelmed by the fact that this episode 7 was that late in the season exactly, and there was really nothing more. Like, okay, of course, episode 7, the Wookiee versus Soul and Torben, great visually, great to see, but it could have been handled in one episode or in tinier flashbacks that are peppered into other episodes. We did not need, because like also it is something that it is Game of Thrones which started this, that you get these, like, when there's an eight episode season or a 10 episode season, around 6 or 7 is where you get this insanely good like highlight
Right.
of the season episode. That is something that at least I myself got used to from watching Game of Thrones, and that's what I expected. And when I got an underwhelming
Reveal.
flashback episode and reveal, I was like, ugh. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
Torben did not
Saul
need to
killed
drink
their
the poison.
mom. Torben definitely did not need to. I mean, he was a little whiny person.
Teenager.
And yeah, sure. Saul killed their mom. Okay. Big deal.
Big deal.
I mean, thing is with that, you know, we talked about it last week, but that could have just been talked about. Like, we didn't need an entire flashback episode so close to the end, and then, you know, to leave.
Saul got startled, so he stabbed her.
Yeah.
Oops. Oopsie.
And then, you know, leads into this, and you know, we get 2 big character reveals. One of which, you know, we was kind of expecting. I think we basically called it in episode 1 that there's going to be that character that appears.
The little green one?
The little green one. Kermit.
I didn't like him being in it. I feel they should not have used him.
I feel that the fact that they are blatantly lying to us, like, no, he's not going to appear, that I don't appreciate.
Yeah.
I think it's just they're just trying to like build that, like, oh my gosh, he's that, like, they're trying to build that excitement, like that shock reveal. But it's like at the same point, it's like we know these characters are around. Like the big shocker, I think for me, was Ki-Adi-Mundi. That one,
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people is like, oh, fans, get over it. They can change his age or whatever, and which I'm completely fine with. But if any character was going to be a big shock reveal, and because he shouldn't exist at this time, that's the shock reveal. Yoda, we kind of expect just because he is alive.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we know that this dude is 900 years old, and we know that he has been a Jedi. So there is no reason for you to tell us, like, no, Yoda will not appear in this. Like, ugh. It's just.
Yeah, come on. We knew, like, straight off the bat that Yoda would probably be in the final episode at some point.
Yeah.
And shockingly, we was right. Like,
Yeah.
But
and they used a puppet.
Nowhere.
And they use the puppet, and I think it's the puppet from Empire, because the way his hairstyle was did not fit the prequel. That fit more like when he was 900 years old, like training Luke.
Mm-hmm.
So they used the wrong character design for him.
I am happy that they, at least, if they were gonna lie and tell us that he's not gonna appear in this and that, they at least just showed us like his silhouette from behind so that we know. What if it is Yodel? What if we're here like, no, what have they done? And then it's like the other one.
I would like that twist. That'd be pretty funny. I would love to see more of Yaddle.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like, this whole Yoda reveal, again, pointless. Like, we know straight away that the Jedi are lying, because it's massively emphasized in this, which, you know, proves Anakin was definitely right.
I see through the lies of the Jedi.
Going forward, whatever Fluffy says about Anakin being wrong, no, this is canon. This is proven. Anakin was right.
It needed to happen.
Yeah,
especially because of this this cover up.
My problem is not that I know that he's right, and that's my problem. Because for years I was like, no, Jedi, the best. Oh, what a beautiful, like, group of heroes. No,
the Jedi are flawed.
They're bad. I mean, I don't know. Okay, I have a question for you guys. What would have been the thing that you would like to, like, see the most and you didn't get to see in this episode? What is the thing that
episode?
A decent
Sorry.
episode.
Okay.
Episode 5 was probably the most decent episode.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see one of the twins kill each other. Didn't get to see that.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more of Kamir and less flashbacks, because I didn't really care for the Coven of Witches. I would have rather had more flashbacks of Kamir and his transition to the dark side. But I guess because we got the reveal that, I mean, I wouldn't say reveal because it was, the show is just way too obvious that we knew Vernestra was his master. So there really was nothing between him and Soul. They may have known each other because Vernestra and Soul were friends. And that's why Soul recognized him. But now we're going to need more backstory between him and Vernestra. But I just wanted to see more Kamir and less Osha and May.
Okay. Sam?
What would I have liked to have seen this? Definitely, I've got to agree with Mark, one of the twins killing the other. Because, again, that sort of whole descent into the dark side from the other twin, which was kind of obvious but made no sense, it was like, right, so you've just got angry and there's like, you could have killed your sister to become like this next big bad wannabe type thing. So that definitely more Plagueis, because, you know, again, it was alluded to. I think I'm looking at this quite negatively because I've been quite positive, or tried to be positive about this season or series. But I think they've known for a while, or must have known for a while, that there's no announcement of season 2 yet. So change it in the way that it would make, like, there's no questions, but there's the potential if it was then renewed for a second season, that it could lead on to that.
Or comics.
Kind of like a Doctor Who type thing, where that for those people that like Doctor Who and that have seen it, especially the sort of first few years of the reboot and the Disney 5 version of it now, you can watch each individual episode and it's an individual story that then leads to the big sort of two-parter Big Bad. I think something like that would have been better for this whole season. You know, following May, who's trying to become this acolyte, because that in itself is my biggest bugbear of this series. It's called The Acolyte.
So is the finale.
What? Yeah, but it's like, why? Like, it was just that there was no. Okay, so I think what I would like from, if I was going to create this final episode, is a better direction.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm not knocking the people that wrote it and directed it, because, you know, they kind of get told basically what to do in a way. But at the same time, it was very Revenge of the Sith, which we've already seen in Revenge of the Sith. It was very, it was too similar to every other Star Wars.
Yeah, because we don't need an Anakin replacement.
Yeah.
Don't need an Anakin replacement.
I think that is the problem. And I think, okay, let me phrase it like this. I think that's what makes Mandalorian so great, because it is unique. It is a new story. And I think that is also the thing what makes the rest of the new Star Wars, starting from sequels to Kenobi to Ahsoka to Acolyte, is that they are using the same formula that the Star Wars fans loved, and they are just recycling the same material, putting different characters to the same arcs, which is something that we don't want.
And that's what a lot of people
Ahsoka
complain about with The
yeah.
Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think as well with this series, so with the Acolyte, because it's set 100 years before the Phantom Menace, having the same formula does not work. Like, you know, you mentioned Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, they're still within the Skywalker saga.
Mhm.
So same formula, go for it. Andor, you know, that was a great thing because that was a prequel to a character that was in Rogue One.
And they did
But
a different formula with it.
Mhm.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, they could have gone down the let's follow the Andor route instead of let's rehash the same ideas that we've done in movies in half-hour segments on the TV. And it
See,
just doesn't work.
and
I
speaking of
think that
Andor,
Mhm.
sorry, and speaking of Andor, just to go off the formula of that they should have done with that, because Andor did the flashbacks perfectly. Like, we understood Andor as a kid and why he was as an adult. And it was like
Yeah.
maybe a 2-3 minute flashback, and then like kind of how Fluffy was saying earlier, like flashbacks spread out through all the episodes in small increments. If they did it the Andor style, I think it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, especially like with the flashbacks from the last episode that we had of Acolyte, where, you know, you and I said it in the last recording that it was a lot of it was very much just reused from episode 3.
Yeah.
The first flashback episode. And it was like, why are we watching the same thing
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I think that's where this I still would get rid of the last episode and change a lot about this one.
Mm-hmm.
I find it okay. So this is going to be a criticism of Disney in the sense that I love that we have a lot of Star Wars, but do we need actually this much Star Wars? That like what Filoni and Favreau struck is gold. It is gold. And it has given us so many things that we wanted that I think it could be allowed that we don't have new Star Wars, new material, new things to watch every year, 2 times, 3 times, but they can actually take the time to, like, they're just trying to keep the momentum going, but it didn't work this time. And yeah.
I was just going to say very quickly on that to sort of back up your point there, Fluffy, is that this was filmed or started filming in October of 2022. So they have had between then and now, give or take, time to refine it, to make sure that there's a story and to announce the season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they could have edited this to be it felt very Marvel-esque. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we've said it before, where Marvel go down that rabbit hole of too much content, and it feels definitely like Star Wars is heading the same. They've kind of pulled back on the Marvel stuff now and are focusing on Star Wars, because when you've got properties like Grogu, where, you know, you can walk into like any shop really that exists and find something with Grogu's face on it. It can be a pharmacy, it can be your local supermarket. You know, that's they've hit a decent, you know, a good character that's for all ages. This misses the mark on so many levels, but it's also forced onto you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even Leslie, like I've been watching a lot of the interviews, and I have no idea what to do because there's so much backlash on the show, and it seems that they backtrack on a lot of what they said. Like, a lot of people were complaining about in episode 3, the twins being created by the Force, or not by the Force, but how the two ladies basically was like, oh, we're going to use the Force, we're going to create the twins. And then Leslie Henlin in a recent interview said, oh, I don't think we actually confirmed how they were created or who created them. But you go back to episode 3, and literally Anastasia says, I created them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, if you're going to produce a show or make a show, you're going to write a show, know what you say in the show. So if you come up, you don't sound like you don't know what you're doing. Because even Yord, as much as you love Yord, I don't know the actor's name, 2 interviews blamed Anakin for blowing up the Death Star. So I just think a lot of the marketing for this episode, especially between the showrunner, and it's kind of why I don't really like May and Osher, the character, just because I don't like the interviews that the actress has done, because the way she comes off in those interviews are very, I don't know the word, but she just rubbed me the wrong way, that I just couldn't like the character because of her. It's the same reason why I didn't like Captain Marvel, because I didn't like the actress.
This is something at the moment very common, that actors use different kinds of roles to actually achieve their larger, like, upcoming roles. This is something that was confirmed by, for example, Sydney Sweeney. She accepted that role in Madame Web, which is like something that I'm a huge fan of Dakota Johnson. I love that woman, and I did not even touch that movie. And wouldn't
Yeah,
with
same.
a 10-foot pole.
From what I heard, yeah.
And Sydney Sweeney said that she took that role so that she could actually rub elbows with the Sony executives and she could sell her other movies. And this is because there is so much content. At the moment, it is impossible to find people who have not been a part of either Marvel or Star Wars. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So she might have, like, that's a very young actor we're talking about. So they might have also said, like, oh, Star Wars, golden, like, fell on my lap. This is just going to skyrocket me to stardom. And it's understandable. It is understandable. I told you, like, I hated the fact that they casted they casted one person for twins. And now we learn that these twins are actually the same person in 2 different bodies. And then we get this, like, dark side, light side, and now this sounds like a cheesy movie from the 70s where there's like a car hit and the memory loss and with the kiss of true love, it just sounded to me at that like that.
Do you know what this does sound like? It sounds like the cheesy 50s B movies where, it's set in space and it's all people like wearing tinfoil suits. Mm-hmm. It's very much got the same sort of storyline where it's, 2 people are one person and they swap the roles around. It's like, dude, we've seen that so many times, but this is Star Wars, right? There's one thing that you don't really mess with, and that's Star Wars. we know, obviously, you can kind of say that Anakin's not really going to be the only one to have been created in a magical sort of sense, because it's sci-fi. I let that part slide.
I mean, it had to have been done before. I mean, if Plagueis is going to try and do it, it had to have happened before. And I think what they're trying to do with Darth Plagueis in this now is because now Osha is going to be trained by Khmer, and Soul explained the whole thing of how she was created. That's going to kind of lessen Darth Plagueis now, because now it's Osha that made him learn about it. And he wasn't the first one to do it now. Like, he didn't just learn how to do it. He saw it and was like, oh, now I'm curious.
I mean, from looking at how perfect Anakin is, we have to know there had been previous trials. You cannot
Well,
just have like, I created an insanely powerful human being just at my first trial. They're like,
well,
there
Anakin was
has to
created by the Force itself. So Darth Plagueis and Palpatine are trying to create something, and the Force is like, nope, not happening, and they completely failed. And then the Force is like, well, in response to that, the Force itself created Anakin. And I've been hearing rumors, and I really hope it's not true, is that Shmi Skywalker is somehow tied to these witches. And they're saying that Shmi used the Force to create Anakin in the same sense that the witches did. Just rumored, but I'm hoping not, because I like that because Shmi was very confused when she was talking to Qui-Gon about Anakin's conception.
Yeah,
So
no, that would be bad. That would be really bad.
It would
The
destroy
witches are
everything
dead.
from the Phantom Menace.
Like,
Are they though?
Yeah. we did see bodies, so you know that confirms it for me.
They're
But
sleeping.
You are right.
It's kind of like when Grogu used the Force a lot. He just kind of took a nap.
I think this is where we're sort of failing, or Star Wars is failing the fans, because like we've said it before as well, where something will happen in an episode, and then Leslie will go on and say, "Oh yeah, it happened because of this." Like, she has to explain everything away. Like, if it's not apparent in the episode, it's a bad episode. Like, however you want to write it up, it's a bad episode. And I think now people are, or the rumor mill starts going with like Shmi being somewhat of the witchy variety, and it's like, no, just leave it alone. It's like the inclusion of Jedi
If she's a
Masters.
witch, she wouldn't be enslaved. Let's just put it that way. If she had that power, she would not be a slave to Watto.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Let's be real here.
When we talk about Ki-Adi-Mundi again, like, why did we even have him? Like, he did not bring anything to the story. There was nothing. It was just a familiar face, and it's like, oh, here, okay, Jedi are something that we know from Star Wars. Oh, by the way, just so you know, this is real Star Wars. Here's a character you've seen before. Just so unnecessary. Wow, when I talk to you guys, I realize how much I actually dislike the whole thing. Because when I turned off the TV, I was like, "Oh, that was good." I mean, to be fair, the last episode, the fight scenes were like perfection. The fights were great.
I think it's because we're discussing the series as a whole. We haven't even really touched the episode itself, other than Darth Plagueis.
That's true.
Because we jump into the episode, like the episode actually has a lot of cool things in it. I did enjoy a lot of parts of it. Like even starting, like I liked how they actually kind of threw me for a loop on this one, where Osha has a vision, but also kind of annoyed me. Hasn't been able to touch the Force for the longest time, but she puts on Chimera's helmet, and all of a sudden she can tap into her witch abilities.
That I didn't like.
And then then Chimera has to struggle to take the helmet off of her, and then she's back to normal. Like, didn't understand that.
I didn't like, I didn't understand. I was like, okay, we are expecting her to be connected to her Force abilities now, but also the witch ability, which is something that did she even train for? I don't know.
Even as a kid,
didn't make any sense.
May was stronger with the abilities than she was. Like, May had to stand in front of her to protect her. And here you get this vision of her going, oh, May has a lightsaber in her hand. Also, her hand's stretched out, killing Soul. So we got to go stop her. And Chimera's like, oh, so I was wrong. She can do it. And a very cool reveal that it actually wasn't May doing it, and that it was Osha. Like,
I hated it.
Huh?
Sorry. I can't. I know I was like really positive in the first 5 episodes, maybe 6. The whole swapping twins role.
I expected that.
I expected it, and that's why I hate it, because it was so obvious.
Too obvious.
Yeah. I know that.
And I was gonna say the thing that I had a problem with was she puts on the helmet, does that whole little force thing. They're walking to the ship, and Kamir's like, "This is your last chance. You want to train with?" She's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm not my sister." And it's like, "Yeah, well, you're right. You're not your sister," because she said it without hesitation. Then they go and do this thing, and she goes and kills Soul. Get a really cool scene with the lightsaber that I really liked. We'll get back into that in a little bit. And then they end up leaving, go to the tree, and Osha's like, "Oh yeah, I'm back to my cheery self again. I just killed somebody, but I'm going to be acting like it isn't affecting me in any way," and say, "Okay, well, let's go back. We're going to go back to the Jedi and tell the Jedi everything that just happened, blah, blah, blah." And then Kamir's like, "No, it's just like, you still trust the Jedi, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let my sister go. I'll train with you."
Yeah.
So there's really no character development for either Fur or May. Both characters seem like they didn't know what they're doing with the character, because May was all cheerful and acting like Osha for most of the episode.
Bearing in mind, May was all ready to give herself into the Jedi, and then in that same episode, or in the following episode, changed her mind and got drop kicked, which was awesome. But now it's just like, I genuinely think the writing is the problem.
100%.
One other thing, as much as I liked the fight scenes, too Matrixy. I don't know if either of you guys picked up on that, but the sudden slow mo.
I did. We can jump into the fight scenes.
Before we go into that, I want to also voice my opinion on the twin swap thing. I did not expect it to happen, and I found it to be completely unnecessary. I mean, why couldn't they have run together? It's not like May does not know where Chimera is from, or
well, they did the whole
like
memory wipe thing like a droid.
Yeah, but why? Why?
So if they because I put that in my notes too. I'm like, okay, why not take May and just have May be Osha's servant or something? Or May strong on the Force too. Like, why not train both of them?
Or May just going her own way from there. They did not what was that? Okay, maybe the spaceship was big enough for just 2. But I'm sure they could have found another way.
Or just kill her.
Oh no. Okay, that is I think Osha killed enough.
She only killed one, and she's got a lot of killing ahead of her if she's going dark side now.
That's true. Speaking of
might as well kill the only tie to her and Kamir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get into the positives, because there are some, and that's the fight scene. Can I just ask a question? What he sabotaged
what was his
the
point?
ship.
Yeah, and runs off.
Why did he sabotage the ship, run off, and then pretend? This is where it comes down to the bad writing. We've got this character that is meant to be a tracker that tracks things, serves that purpose. For some reason, then sabotages the ship that he is on.
Because all of a sudden he likes May after he assaulted her in whatever engine room they were in.
Yeah. And then,
did he know Soul was the bad guy here? Did he know that? Because that's the only explanation, but how could he know?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was so left
random
and pointless.
Mm-hmm.
It again took me out of the story, seeing this little tracker dude that it was kind of adorable, that kind of
no.
picked up on the fact it was May, and then sabotaged the ship for no reason, and Sol just let it happen.
Not to mention that whole space scene was kind of lame. Like, May's like, oh, I'm going to shock you with Pip. Run away. I'm going to jump into this little ship. We're going to fly down. Oh, I'm going to go in between these little ice ring. Sol's not going to find me here, even though I'm headed to the planet. It's like, okay, he might not follow you, but, I mean, he can go above the ring. I mean, it's got to end at some point.
Yeah. Space exists. But I
Yeah.
guess with like the whole Basil thing, maybe he heard the story as Sol was telling it to May. And that kind of influenced his decision to sabotage the ship. But it's like,
She still started the fire and caused all that chaos.
Yeah.
If her and that other witch didn't do anything, that whole thing would have changed. Could have been so differently.
Yeah.
So it's not Sol's fault. Other than his creepy attachment to Osha upon seeing her and going, I need a padawan. For no reason. Doesn't even know her. Barely saw her. And feels this instant connection. And gets super emotional about it.
I think that should be the title of this episode, For No Reason. Because that seems
For
to
no
be what
reason.
we're saying quite a lot. But no, I mean, all the negatives aside, which is quite a lot, there are
Sadly.
positives in this episode.
Come any scene he's in is pretty dope. I'm actually getting used to his helmet. I'm starting to like the helmet now. It's growing on me.
Yeah, I liked it ever since we have been able to actually see it clearly. I like it a lot, but also it might be my what is it called? My I can't. All right, you're gonna have to cut this part. What is that word when you have a positive opinion of someone because you have positive feelings towards them?
Say positive?
That's not the word.
I'm not sure I understand.
I have
Respect?
No. That's not
I've
what
just
I
got
mean at
surfing
all.
bird going through my head now.
What?
You've mentioned what is the word, and every time I
The bird
hear it,
is the
my
word.
brain goes, exactly.
The bird. The bird's the word. Bird. Bird.
Thank you. Now, even there's not even a whisper of a thought anymore. All right. Sorry. You guys continue, and I will find my way back into this discussion.
No, you're fine. But I mean, I definitely did put. I wrote my notes. Sorry for anybody. I'm like, still not liking Basil. He's just over the top. And why did he sabotage Sol? Like, that question was never answered. And I don't like Mog either. If we're talking about characters I don't like, every time Mog's on screen, I just want to come here, kill him.
Wait, who's that?
Vanessa's apprentice.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
the extreme British dude. There's just something about. It's not because he's British. It's just something about him just makes me not like him. He comes across as like, I don't know, just one of those like annoying like Jedi that's like, oh, gotta follow all the rules. I'm gonna come in, blah blah, do my things. Like he just.
I don't want to.
Reminds me of somebody that doesn't break the rules. He just sounds like a very boring character, and he looks like one of those people. If you do something wrong, he's gonna tell on you.
Oh, for me, it's the exact opposite. It sounds like, for me, he sounds so incompetent.
That too.
He has to be spelled every single step of everything. I'm sure you have those coworkers that you can never tell just like, could you take care of this for me? But you have to go through an entire set of instructions so that you know that they are
video
going to be
tutorials
done.
And everything.
Exactly. He's that guy. And he makes me furious. He has to be like, did you let him in the control room? Like, that's like I could see Renestra rolling her eyes without rolling her eyes. Like,
That's probably
don't
why
do that.
that's probably why she's so excited to find her pupil. She's like, my only good apprentice, and he's still alive? We gotta find him. Get rid of Mog.
Yeah, he is so no.
And it's good to know I'm not the only person, because not pretty much a lot of people on the internet don't like him. So I'm sorry for the actor. I really did. I really am sorry for the actor, but the character, terrible.
But that's
Just
the
don't like
thing.
him.
That's actually a compliment on the actor, because I'm sure he's not like that in real life. So he did a really good job acting like a
I'm
complete
hoping he's not like
incompetent
that in real
fool.
life.
I do think that the writing for every character was not the best. I mean, I defended it early on by saying Star Wars isn't known for its stellar writing, but the more I look at it now on an episode to episode basis, and we discuss it and we talk about the different characters, and I'm sat here and I'm like, what was I on about, man? Like, this is just not good writing.
Anakin had terrible dialogue, and he's probably the top fan favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like Anakin's story. I think we cannot compare to anything else. That is such a rare thing.
I'm comparing like the writing and dialogue.
Yeah, I understand, but the character's arc is like it is.
Oh,
in like unique in cinematic history.
yeah, because I was watching an interview that George Lucas did, and he was like, we mostly call this a space opera, but he's like, it's actually more like a soap opera. Because with Anakin falling to the dark side, and then he's got Luke, Leia, and Padme. It's all this like family drama that's going on between these 6 movies. That Lucas is like, yeah, in this sense, it's more of a soap opera than a space opera. And Anakin's story is just so complex, especially when you bring Luke into it, because it's like, okay, even Dave Filoni mentions, he's like, okay, well, according to Obi-Wan in Rebels, Obi-Wan believes Luke is the chosen one because he's from Anakin. Like, they thought Anakin was the chosen one, but he failed. So, but here Luke comes bearing the same name. And so to Obi-Wan, he was the chosen one, but ultimately it was still Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So Anakin's story is very complex, and you can't really compare it to like anything else. Like, yes, it's got some choppy writing throughout the movies and some terrible dialogue here and there, but the entire story itself,
nothing can
is
touch
well
that.
written.
No matter how horrible the dialogue is at certain points, especially Sand, we all know. But no, like Anakin's character arc, Anakin's story arc, no one
Solid.
can touch that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what this tried to do.
I do gotta say, speaking of Anakin, Martian Manhunter. Nobody get that? The character? It's from the Arrowverse. Supergirl.
I know who the Martian. Well, I haven't seen Supergirl, but I know of the character.
Okay, yeah, the actor that played Martian Manhunter is in. He played the senator that was talking to Vernestra in the office. Basically talking, it's like, okay, I'm the one advocating against the Jedi, saying you guys are unchecked power that posing as some religion. He's like, you guys are sitting here trying to control your emotion. He's like, it's only one day that one of you is going to snap, and he's going to be strong enough to stop him. It's like, Anakin.
Yeah, see,
I'm not sure I like all these references to Anakin, though.
That, again, was just, like, totally unnecessary.
People who make jokes and is like, huh? Did you get it? I think it was that.
It was, like, definitely.
That's how it felt to me. Those, like, we showed you later on, like it was that guy, you know, like he
Because
snapped.
they mention it in episode 7, and Anasaya mentions it too. She says your
Yeah.
Jedi politics and everything is going to be the downfall of all your Jedi. And so they're making a lot of references to what's going to happen later with Anakin. That it's like, at this point, I get it, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be mentioned so often. And I get it in the sense with, I don't know the character's name, so I'm just going to keep calling him Martian Manhunter.
Senator Ravencroft? Like it had
it sounds familiar.
like a very badass name.
He was also in Doctor Who, just to throw that one in there. Ravencourt.
Raincourt. Okay, Senator Raincourt.
What did I say?
Ravencourt. It's pretty close. Both sound cool.
Oh, okay.
And
sorry.
so we got Senator Raincourt coming in here talking to Vernestra. It's like, okay, yeah. It's like, first of all, why is he talking to Vernestra and not the Jedi Council themselves? And 2, makes sense. Like, I can understand. Like, if we dive more into Legends material and all the war with the Jedi and the Sith and all the destruction that essentially comes from Force wielders, I can understand why the senator would be advocating against the Jedi and say, hey, nope, we're going to put to a vote. You guys need to be policed by us now. And why didn't you come to us about all these Jedi killings? It's like, okay, well, we're the Jedi. It's one of our people, so we're investigating our own issue until it becomes a bigger thing. He's like, well, no, you guys need to mention everything. Even if you guys handle it yourselves, we still need to know. So I like that because now it shows the ties into the prequels of why the Jedi are so involved with the Senate now. So I thought that was kind of a nice little tie-in, a nice little build-up. Because I feel like that's what this show has been mainly trying to do, is show how the Jedi are going from point A to point B. But we're also going to talk about May and Osha as a side thing.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely liked that, actually, the whole, Senate getting involved. You are correct. It
Delusional cult.
Yeah, it makes no sense why he didn't go to the council and why, just this sort of random Jedi woman. I mean, story-wise, I kind of get it, because then you're talking of a movie-length episode, but it was a good thing, but it bugged me as well because Vernestra isn't on the council as far as we know.
Yeah, they haven't. See, that's a part of the writing. Is like they haven't really told us anything. Like comes down to the writing. Like if we're still guessing on the finale what her role is, other than cleanup crew, then who is she?
Yeah, I really need to know. Like that's you're right about that bad writing, because I really need to know what is Vernestra's deal. Like, what is she? Why is she so important? Why is she acting? Because that's what she said, right? Acting on behalf of the Jedi High Council.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so were you appointed by the Jedi Council to do this, or are you one of the members?
Who are you? What are you?
And then she's reporting to Yoda. So Yoda obviously holds a higher role than she does at this point too. So why all of so what is she gonna tell Yoda too? Because that's gonna I get it, like Yoda didn't know Palpatine was a Sith, and they're pretty much buddy through 3 movies. So I'm not gonna say that Yoda is gonna be sitting there going, okay, I feel all these Jedi deaths, but I mean, by the time we get to the prequels, Yoda has more visions and is a little bit more connected to the Force. Like, especially watching it through Clone Wars, like he goes off on his own little journey, and he comes back and goes, "Oh yeah, I talked to the Wills," and the rest of the Jedi are like, "Oh nope, Yoda's in his dementia stage. He's just talking nonsense now." And so at this point, I don't think Yoda probably would have felt all the chaos that's going on because other Jedi were already involved dealing with it. So the Force didn't need to speak out to one specific Jedi. Whereas Yoda's fate was more attached to Anakin. So in Attack of the Clones, when he felt Anakin's pain and him killing all the Tusken Raiders, it made more sense for him to feel that, especially because Qui-Gon was reaching out to Yoda at the same time, yelling Anakin no. So there's a little bit more. So I know a lot of people are like, okay, well, we're introducing Yoda, but why did he feel this, or why is he not involved? Like, he felt this, he did pick or choose. It's like his involvement wasn't as tied to it, so I don't think he was that sensitive to the Force in that sense, in that area. He was probably focused on other things. That's just my thinking on it. I don't know if you guys agree or have different thoughts on that. Because you gotta remember, Senator Palpatine was chilling with it. They're like in his office and they talk to him a lot. And
Yeah.
Yoda mentions the dark side being clouded, so
yeah. The big question is, what was Vanessa going to say to Yoda? Because she's covered it up. Like, it was a rogue Jedi that killed his comrades and then went crazy and killed himself. So, you know, when we see Yoda and Vanessa's going up to her, it's like, what was the point in that? Like, Yoda doesn't seem to know anything about the Sith in the prequels. So, obviously, you know, Vanessa's there hiding it. So, is she slightly on the dark side? This is the biggest.
She's not a good Jedi. She's not a good person.
Issue.
Because didn't I call it? They were gonna blame it on Soul, and then when she's talking to his body, she's like, "I'm so sorry," knowing that she's gonna pin it on him because she's trying to cover this up. Still gives him the Jedi burning burial, which I thought was cool. That's how I want to go out. Just saying, because it looks really cool, especially on a lake. Give me like the old, was it Viking burial?
Yeah.
But yeah, she's trying to cover it. I don't think she's a good Jedi. Like,
at this point, are there any good Jedi?
No, I'm gonna say it this way, because based on her interactions with Rain Court, she's trying not to get the Senate involved in Jedi affairs. So I think her intentions are good.
But why? She's not on. We don't know if she's on the council. So she is kind of interfering. Yes, you know, cover up your sort of comrades' things that happened, but when it's matters that are important, like, you know, the Senate and the Jedi Council, we need to know if she's actually on the council or not, because again, it's a character that we never hear about, we never see again. It's kind of like the Omega, you know, the Omega ending in Bad Batch season 3. Like, that is a
no spoilers. No spoilers yet, because I don't know if Fluffy's caught up yet. On season 3 Bad Batch.
Okay, so the ending happens, and something happens, and something, and something, and something.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. At this point, you can spoil anything.
Okay.
But it's Omega's a character that we never hear of again, and it's very much like that. But this is a prequel to the prequels, and it's the writing. There's no other thing that I can say about it apart from the writing is just not that good. And like we've said, you know, Leslie's had to go and do interviews and stuff after each episode, or she'll say something or tweet something that's like,
and even then she doesn't even know.
Yeah,
because she contradicts herself a lot, I've noticed.
So it's the premise was so good for this season or
It
series.
just didn't deliver.
Yeah, and this episode was a letdown, and part of that is because of the previous episode being a flashback so close to the end of the season.
See, I still really enjoyed this episode. I just don't think it landed as well it should have.
I love the visuals of the episode, but the story
I
wise, it was
I-
lacking a lot of things.
I love the visuals a lot for the whole series.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think-
Vernestra, it's just I feel like she is, because we don't know what her title is. So at this point, I'm feeling like Vernestra is very much like Mace Windu in terms of her ambitions and so on and
And
so
she's bald.
forth. And she's bald, and she has a purple lightsaber.
Done.
See? Everything lines up. It's a
Sorry, Samuel L. Jackson,
Mm,
for this comparison. I do like Mace Windu
It-
better than Vernestra.
yeah.
And you guys know how I feel
Yeah.
about Mace Windu.
Yeah. I love that. I love Mace Windu. He was
Oh,
my
he's a
favorite
good
Jedi.
he's a really good character. Like,
Yeah.
he's just
What
a
I
jerk.
what I wanted to say exactly. Renestra is a jerk too, and she's way too ambitious. Probably probably she is lined up for a seat at the High Council, and that's why she's trying to pretend that the entire Jedi Temple is not on fire. And she's just that's what I'm
That makes
thinking.
sense.
I think
I like
these
that
are-
thought. Like, she's like one of those cops that's like, oh, I'm up for promotion, so I can't screw up.
Yeah, exactly.
But it felt too much like, again, sort of the prequels and especially Revenge of the Sith. Like,
And we'll get
we
into that in a little bit too, because there's also another big thing that was done because of Revenge of the Sith, and it was the fight scene with Khmer and Soul. But we'll get into that in a bit. Sorry if I lost your train of thought.
I think it's for the best that my train of thought leaves the station at this point, because I'm rapidly running. Like I say, early up until episode 7, really, I was Mr. Positive on most aspects of the Acolyte, but
You and I kind of switched roles, which is funny. You like the first half. I actually like the second half better, minus episode 7.
I think this episode would have been great. Firstly, the runtime was actually, like, I prefer the longer runtime for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
This should have been the runtime for every episode.
Yeah.
So there's that. This episode as well could have been like mid-series, and then the fallout from it could have then been, more about the Acolyte being trained to be the Acolyte, which would have been Osha all along.
So make it like a 12-episode series. Cut out the 2 flashback scenes. Just kind of sprinkle them into the other episodes. So episode 6 becomes the mid-season finale idea.
Yeah.
And then maybe the next 4 episodes.
Episode 1 could have been the flashback episode, where we see who we don't get it from any perspective, but we get to know who these characters are, and then where the story leads them. And then 6 would be the reveal. This episode.
House of the Dragon did it like that. They actually took the story from the beginning, and then they just did huge time jumps.
That's true.
That's okay too. Like, I had 0 problems about how that was done in the first season of House of the Dragon.
Confused me a little bit, but
yeah,
but I got used to it, and I liked how they did it.
Way better than flashbacks. Way better.
Because even in this one, with the reveal of Plagueis, that would have been better mid-season finale.
Or end credit scene.
Or end credit scene, but still sort of episode 6 if this was a 12-episode run. And then have him being the one that was pulling the strings and training Khmer, who's then training Osha to be the Acolyte, to do their bidding to stay hidden.
Khmer challenges Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis kills Khmer and is like, all right, Osha, let's see what you can do. I'm going to train you.
Yeah. It's quite sad in a sense that 3 people here have somehow managed to come up with a better season than people that are being paid to do it.
We've seen Star Wars. The writers on the show have not, and I think that's one of the biggest downfalls.
Oh.
Yeah. They tried to make it too Revenge of the Sith.
It's probably these writers haven't seen Star Wars, so they start with the prequels and then they see Revenge of the Sith, and so they have really nothing to pull on. So there's like, oh, let's just copy it.
I just think Marvel has had some misses, especially recently. But Kevin Feige being at the helm of the all creative direction is a great thing. Same thing, James Gunn now is at the creative helm for DC.
I'm so excited.
Favreau, hopefully.
They actually also
and
agreed
because this does not work like this. It does not.
Because I think they brought the Russo brothers back for Avengers
movies, exactly.
Yeah.
They did. They just announced that. By the way, I got midnight premiere tickets to Deadpool and Wolverine. I am watching it as one of the first people.
Please don't spoil it. I'm going to be in Georgia and I can't watch it till I get home.
Excuse me. Of course I will not spoil it. I'll just tell you that it's the best movie in the entire universe until we
just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Because I'll see it first thing when I get back home, and then I'll be like, all right, Fluffy, we're getting on a Skype call, let's talk. It's funny how like we've switched, because I like the second half better, minus episode 7. And jumping back to like Vernestra, like I really hope that this was not Palpatine she was speaking to. Because I don't know if when I was watching it with my cousin, and I've seen people talk about it on their reviews on TikTok and stuff like that, and they're like, the person that Vanessa was talking to over the phone, I'll say phone or comlink or whatever, the person speaking back sounded like Palpatine. Like a prequel version of Palpatine.
I picked up on that too.
I was hoping that's not where they're going with it. I hope it was just a sound alike.
There is that rumor that when Palpatine is shooting the lightning at Mace Windu, and it's being bounced back, that is actually that's his true form. So we don't fully know, because obviously manipulation and stuff, how old Palpatine properly is. So it could be a younger Palpatine. I wouldn't want it to be because reasons, but
you've already got him in the prequels, originals, and the ending to the sequel.
I am
as much as
that's not going to fly for me. But
as much as I love Palpatine,
another Palpatine, no.
I love Palpatine. Don't get me wrong. Greatest villain of all time next to Vader. Though that I think if we get oversaturation of a character, it's gonna take away the importance of that character. I even think the sequels kind of ruined Palpatine just a little bit.
Yeah.
The sequels were oversaturation. We don't need it. That character had an incredible story arc through 6 movies.
The only Sith to destroy an entire order of Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. I cannot. I honestly will be so upset if we get another Palpatine reveal. Because I was really, really disappointed with the 9th movie, which is so ridiculous to say that there is a 9th movie. But
and a 10th and 11th movie.
Oh yeah.
But they're spin-offs, so can't really count them as part of the trilogy. And then we're getting another one with Rey, so that's going to be the continuation of the Jedi Order.
Okay. Oh god, I'm going to digress again. But since Rey claimed the surname Skywalker, is that going to be Skywalker Saga?
I hope not.
Movie?
I think that's kind of the culmination of the Skywalker Saga. Kind of.
But is it a part of it or not?
I mean, for me, until it's confirmed, it's going to be a yes and a no, which is not an answer. But
That's an Elvish answer.
The way that I think about it is, it's like the second Spider-Man movie in the MCU. No, Far From Home.
Okay.
Where it's after Endgame. So you've got Endgame, which is the big.
Oh, it's not the Infinity Saga. Got it.
I thought that was No Way Home. No Way Home was after.
No Way
Endgame.
Home is number 3.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. The second one, because he comes back. You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's why he gives Edith to Mysterio and so on and so forth.
With the fallout of Endgame. And I'm kind of thinking that this will be, that the Rey movie will be, obviously, I think we've been told it's set, what, like 10 years?
15 years.
15.
15.
10 to 20. It's in between.
You're close.
It's set a while after the whole episode 9 fiasco. So I think it's going to be more akin to the Spider-Man /
Saga.
Thing. Yeah, it's part of it, but also it is its own sort of entity. So that explains the Elvish answer.
I'm okay with that answer.
Same.
So, back to the episode. We can discuss Rey movie all we want later, because we're an hour and 27 minutes so far. Still a few more things. So, anybody else think
positive?
I thought I'd been positive.
Can I be positive?
I think so. I know I've been very neutral.
I will say, and I know that we kind of touched on it already. Any scene with Khmer in this episode was just like, he kind of made it was grounded. You know, he brought the episode back down to reality in the way that, like, the acting was on point. Like, you know, you could tell he was dark side, but not like
he was the Kylo Ren of the series.
Yeah. Yes.
And I wanted to touch on his character. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. How you said that he's kind of like Sith, but he's grounded, or you can tell he's dark side, but grounded. Because I did put some things. I said he's way too patient with Osha. He gives off that whole idea of being fair, and he's very calm with her. He's not the type of person that's gonna yell at her and scream at her. It's like, you're not gonna join me, all right? I'm gonna kill you right now. He's like, nah. Like, he senses something, and he's like trying to kind of really pull her in, saying, hey, dark side's not that bad. Look, I'm chill. And I thought that was kind of a nice change for the dark side, because it doesn't pin them. I mean, obviously dark side's evil, like Sith evil, like no question about it.
Just because they use a lightsaber and murder a few Jedi here and there doesn't make anybody evil.
Just misguided.
I honestly, you brainwashed me so hard. For a second, I was like, yeah, you might be right. You know what? Yeah.
I will say, though, so I know in previous recordings we said that Khmer is very sort of manipulating.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think he is, because he's too fair. He just wants to live his life how he wants to live it.
But what does Darth Plagueis think of that?
Too little of him to be saying that.
Is Plagueis his actual master, or is he just watching to get a new apprentice?
What I think about Khmer's entire motivation, or the way that he is acting the way he is because he has a very similar background to May and Asha. Because that's what he said, that he lost everything, and once he lost everything, that he found himself. And that's the exact background of May and Asha, and I think that's why I did not see Khmer, whatever, Lord Smoke Show, interacting
The
with
stranger.
any other characters, the stranger, with any other characters at length. So that's why I cannot decide what kind of a character he actually is, because all we know is what we gather from his interactions from May and Asha, which come from a very similar background.
Yeah, because I wrote this down in my notes too, and I have a little bit more thoughts on it. Like, I think he's just very calculating, because I was gonna say this is really bad writing, because when May comes in, steals Soul's lightsaber, throws it away, and then Soul starts doing his whole monologue, and I was like, "Come here, use the Force, grab his lightsaber, and kill him." I was like, "This is really bad writing." But then I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, maybe he was just calculating because of Osha's vision at the beginning, saying that May is the one that kills him, and so he didn't want to interfere. He wanted to see May actually do it, and that's why he didn't strike when he did, when he could have.
I think so too. I mean, that was the reason why he also brought Asha there. Wasn't it? We knew that. I mean, we know that it is possible for him to learn where May is from Asha and just go there. But he wanted to do this. He wanted Asha to be the one to go there to see if she is going to turn to the dark side, because he has already lost hope on May because he thought May was too weak. So this
But now
was
he
a
thinks
part of
May
his
is the
plan.
one that kills. Now he thinks May is the one that kills Soul, because
Or
when
does
on their way there, Sam, I hate when you do that, because there's nothing I can say to that, because I don't know, because the story is so
What?
terribly written, we can't. But because he tells Osha, he's like, okay, let's go to the same planet and let's see who gets to her first.
Yeah, it's just these are all just again manipulative small steps,
Yeah.
because he could have easily forced Osha to tell him or to make her take him there, whatever. But that's what he wanted to see. Because this was the last step. Somebody needed to kill a Jedi without a weapon to be the Acolyte. And that was, in the end, Osha, who force choked Soul to death.
Which also I like, because in the comics, like, we learned from the Darth Vader comic that when Vader first became Darkseid, or after he fell from the Order and put on the suit, he didn't have a lightsaber. I know in Legends, the Revenge of the Sith game, Palpatine shows up and hands Anakin a like he already had a lightsaber for him, which is cool. But
yeah,
in the beginning, I didn't like the whole idea of the lightsaber crystals, and kind of like how they described it in Ahsoka, where she killed an Inquisitor, grabbed the lightsabers, and because of her purifying the crystals, they turned white. And then I was like, I don't like that, because I like being able to choose my color instead of the crystal itself choosing the color for you. And then I saw the Darth Vader comic, and I started getting a little bit more used to it. And it's like Vader finds this Jedi that was not part of Order 66, because he was on some scouting mission or some like scientific mission, so he didn't need clones with him. So Vader finds him, goes, kills him without a lightsaber, takes a lightsaber, breaks it apart, takes a crystal, and pours all the dark side and hatred into it till it bleeds red. And I think that would have been too much story to be thrown on screen. So I think how they did it with Osha was actually well done, because she comes out angry that Soul killed her mom, and then she starts force choking him, kills him, and then that's when the crystal starts bleeding, because she has all this hatred, and while holding the lightsaber is pouring all that energy into the crystal while she's holding it. So I thought that whole transformation from blue to red was actually pretty cool. But also at the same time, she was ready to attack Khmer, and then just because it turned red, she's like, oh, all right, I'll train with you. I don't hate you anymore. I'll just train with you. They're just too sudden.
I will say, completely agree. Way too sudden on that. I loved the transition from the blue to the red, and how it was like at one point it was sort of the color change was struggling. So it was that, are you, like, what side are you going to choose? And but then it just went red, and that was it. It was like, oh, I'm evil apparently now. Cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Welcome to the team.
But the actual like visuals of it, oh my,
Stunning.
I loved it.
Stunning.
Yeah. Like, I don't.
Same.
Apart from the odd time in this season where we've had, you know, early on in the season where a lot of it was very much like a 4-year-old did the graphics. The graphics.
That one actually looked real done.
Yeah, this was like so beautifully done. The transition of it was amazing.
The crystal looks already very much like in the shape of an anatomical heart, and the way they actually made it look like it had veins that were bleeding out was really, really well done. It was my favorite part of the whole episode, maybe the whole show, aside from the things that I'm partial to. Oh, that was the word I was looking for. Partial. Yeah, that's good. We came full circle. Yeah, that was so well done. I really, really enjoyed seeing that. It gave I 100% agree with you, Mark, on that we did not need to get told or need to have a backstory of how that worked. I think they showed it very well in just one simple scene with great.
Yeah, they visualized it great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And was I the only one that thought the lightsaber broke when May threw it on the floor? I thought it broke. Because the way the crystal kind of moved when it fell. I know that the visual was there just to show the crystal so we can kind of get more of a visual for that transformation scene. But I thought it broke in the beginning, to be honest.
If you look at the lightsaber itself, when Osha ignites it, it's not a straight beam now. So like where we've got like Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsaber, because I pick up on the weird details for some reason. So like when you see Sol using the lightsaber, it's almost a perfect cylinder when it's ignited. When you see Osha use it, it's very much akin to Kylo Ren's, where it's not as
a little unstable,
but it is unstable.
Up right now.
Yeah, and to me, I thought like there's a glass lens covering the crystal, and I think that cracked, and that's what's causing the which
I think so too.
Well, I mean that's the emitter.
I don't think we needed to see that happen like that, or I don't know, but I think that was just solely made that so that we could see the crystal and get the later visual of the crystal bleeding. Because you usually do not see the crystal when you look into the lightsaber, right?
Yeah. I'm not complaining about it though, because I thought that showing the lightsaber damaged was also sort of a visual of sort of Sol himself, you know, what he's done. And that's the final part of his legacy then, if you will, being destroyed.
So my question is, do you think she's going to keep that lightsaber, or is she going to build a new one? And then Sol will always be part of her journey.
I think that she might keep the lightsaber. She might modify it if we were to get a season 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the core elements of it, the broken emitter lens, the obviously the red crystal now, I think that she's just going to keep it all as is. Because the other thing I've noticed with the lightsabers they are very much the same style. So like where you've got in the prequel trilogy, when we have more lightsabers on show, they're all sort of different and customized to the Jedi wielding them. Whereas in this, from the start to the finish, the lightsabers are very basic. And so I think, it shows that the Jedi Order is trying to show that they're one entity by having everybody dressed the same and everybody have the same looking lightsaber.
I agree with you on that one. I especially felt really disappointed when I saw Kelnaka's lightsaber, because from the little Wookiee Jedi in Clone Wars, we know how important it was for him. Gungi, yeah, exactly. And he had like a wooden looking design that make him very much connected to Kashyyyk and his people and so on. But when I saw Kelnaka's, I was like, ugh, it's like a very standard looking lightsaber hilt. So yeah, you are very much right about that. I also felt the same when I saw Renestra's final costume. I was like, she is doing so much lying, manipulation, deception, and then showing up there with like spotless white robes and like Jedi symbols, and it was like that part of the show I think is really, really well made, especially the costume design and the props set designs. In that sense, it gives me the perfect illusion of how the Jedi are. Like, if you don't know the story like we do, or just if you're not willing to look into it and think about it critically, it just everything looks way too perfect, way too uniform, that it cannot be.
And that was my other thing. It's like we see Vernestra doing all the stuff she's doing, and then you see these 4 Jedi, and it's building up to the fall of the Jedi and kind of where we see them in the prequels, but it just seems like a little trickle. Like, we need to see more Jedi like them instead of just a few solo Jedi acting like this. Because it just seems kind of like a little snowball running down the hill, but not an avalanche going blah. All right, all these Jedi are acting like this, so to me it's like, okay, we only see a few Jedi, and then the rest of them die, and then now we got another group of Jedi that all seem very in control of their emotions.
Yeah. I kind of think on that side of things, this series would have been good as 2 separate series. One focusing on the actual Acolyte and that aspect of it, and the other one focusing more on the Jedi deception within their own ranks.
I think you just kind of nailed it, dude. I think that's probably the reason why I didn't like this series so much, is because they're trying to tell 2 stories, and it just doesn't work as 2 stories or in one story.
They needed another type of story, or another, maybe, I mean, it could have been, it's going to sound so cheesy, but it could be like the CSI kind of show, but Jedi of the High Republic. And of course, there's like a big bad, or there is like something that we're building up to in the end. But this Acolyte and everything, the background really was not the show or the story to integrate into the arc of the Jedi of the High Republic and their fall down. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Sam. That's a great observation.
So I've had my rant now. Like, positive Sam's coming back.
All right, well, but I'm gonna throw a wrench in that one. May and Osha's fight, I did not like it one bit, and I turned it down because, one, they were screaming a lot, which took me away from it. I thought it was cheesy. 2, the music behind it just didn't take it serious, especially with Pip shooting something in her eye. It just didn't seem I just couldn't get into the fight. It just seems so cheesy and kind of
I
Where
didn't think like that. I just thought after all those years, how are they so much in sync still? But I guess that was to give us the idea of like, okay, this is like the one person in two different bodies idea, or how well their training was. But it's like they were just 8 years old. I don't think it was the training with the witches. So yeah, that's what
training
I
with
thought. But
Khmer and training with the Jedi.
yeah, but they were doing the exact same moves. I
So
don't like it has to be either childhood or really being the same person.
this is where our roles have swapped back to early episodes then, because I really loved that fight because of the fact that they were mirroring each other. You know, they are.
I
They
just
are
didn't like the
same
music.
person. I mean,
The music just didn't seem intense enough for the emotions that they were feeling.
I could give or take the music. You know, could it have been better? Yes. Am I basing it on like Revenge of the Sith style, Anakin versus Obi-Wan, or
The duel battle of the heroes, you can't compare. That just
or Duel of the Fates, or the full intense music where you got lightsabers involved? But because this was a fist fight, it was like I keep it.
I
Whenever
think
they
we should.
interchanged back to Soul and Chimera, the music changed, and the music was better with those two.
I think we should admit that overall the soundtrack of this show is relatively weak when you compare it to everything else Star Wars.
On that one, very quickly, what did you think to the song at the end of episode 7?
What was that?
It was an actual.
It was the rendition of the two.
No, it was a proper. So at the end of the flashback episode, it was a proper song, like an actual sort of semi-pop song.
I thought it
Like
was a
light
different
lyrics.
rendition of The Power of Two.
No, it was a proper song.
Okay.
Fluffy now Googles that.
Yeah, because I thought I read something rendition of The Power of One, Power of Two.
So that, I think that was used in an earlier episode, but this one for 7 was a proper song, and it kind of added a bit more backstory to the twins, or the same character, whatever you want to call them now. Just by the lyrics, and in the last recording, we went through the lyrics and stuff, and it was.
This song is called Power of Two. It's just a different. That's why I read the name and I thought it was a different rendition. That's why I didn't even pay attention to it. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of gave some bits away for this episode, in the way that, looking back on the lyrics of that to the turning of May and Osha's characters to being the opposites of when they started, or when we first see them, it adds a lot to it.
This is exactly how it is written on Screen Rant. These lyrics hint that May and Osha, being aversions in the Force, will forever put them at odds with one another, no matter who they're aligned with. So they will forever be the opposite of each other, no matter who they're aligned with. That's, I guess, why they could not have been together with Khmer, with Plagueis, or with Jedi. They would eventually turn.
And why Vernestra is going to be using May now to find Khmer.
Yeah. And so I think, like, music-wise in the fights, especially the tonality of the two different styles of music in the fights, where you've got the lightsaber fight with the music that we're more accustomed
more
to.
instrumental.
Yeah, and then when
whereas May and Osha was kind of like a chant or something.
But that chant then symbolizes what we know about them. It's the fact that they are essentially one person. They are the mirror. They're the yin and yang. You can't have, or the Harry and the Voldemort. You can't have one without the other, but if you kill one, the other one dies.
Fair enough.
I just got heart eyes from that. Like, references. Yay.
Like I totally I trust me, I totally get like the symbolism and stuff with it, but I just didn't care for their fight. I think it's probably just because like the way that they've paced this show and just the way that these characters are. Anytime there's like a big moment for them, I'm just not emotionally attached because I just don't care. And that's kind of my problem with Rogue One. Like my friend makes fun of me all the time, and I tell him, was like, yeah, Rogue One was good. Like the last 30 minutes, I just didn't care about any of the characters. So when anybody died on screen, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. And that's kind of how I feel with like May and Osha. Like I just don't care for the characters. I just don't. So whatever had like any big moment with them, I'm just kind of just like not there. It's like, okay, all right. Oh, back to Solon. Come here. All right, let's go.
No, I mean that's entirely fair enough to say. You know, these characters. I think if the characters were written better, I would have more of a emotional response to them, to the things that they're doing within the episode. So like when Yord or Jedi Knight Beefcake died.
I was sad when he died.
Yeah, because like he was
written well.
Yeah, you know, and the same with Jackie. You know, when she died, it was like, dude, what, why? I liked that character. With
give them at least another episode. Let them all die here on Brendok. With the soul.
I think that's where, again, you know, maybe having this one series as two different series would have been better. Where, you know, you've got the Jedi side and then the Acolyte side.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, potentially sort of do it in the same way of Tales of.
Okay,
you know, where you've got the three, I wouldn't say have three stories of it, but have you know, one the same season then, or the same series, but split it into
two different stories.
Yeah, and don't
kind of like a Black Mirror thing.
Yeah, but definitely don't merge them because it takes you out of what's actually going on. So like we've said, you know, Venestra's side overpowers the actual Acolyte story.
Yeah.
Because now this brings the question, who's the main character?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Because it seems like Vernestra is like the main character now. And might have been the entire time.
Yeah.
Just not enough screen time.
I mean, this just, from all of what we've discussed, the potential was there for this show. It's just the execution.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the story has so much merit. The story asks us so many questions. It just poses so many different concepts, things that we want to learn about. It is just the way that it was done that just, unfortunately, took a lot out of it. Yeah,
but the lightsaber fights.
Who is the main character? Yeah.
Lightsaber fights, though.
That was really good.
And I know Sam said earlier that he got a Matrix bill. What I actually wrote down was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yep, same.
Yeah. I got more of that with a mix of Matrix to it, and I liked it, but I didn't at the same time, just because it just kind of feels out of place for Star Wars. Because Star Wars is more about fast paced, like boom, 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 lightsabers, all this, and movements, and this just kind of like slowed it down, I think, unnecessarily. However, I think my favorite move out of that entire fight scene was when Khmer threw both of his lightsabers.
Yes, the force
Soul-
push.
Yes, Soul just dodges the lightsabers, and Khmer's like running at him, and then he just does a force push. And I think Sam's gonna be negative on that.
No, I think he
No.
just. Oh,
I
think he just like
I
thought
saw
about
you put
it
your
and-
hand on your. I saw you put your hand on your head. It looked like you're kind of like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like
No.
No, his
cheesy.
eyes just rolled to the back of his head from thinking about
Gotcha.
it.
That was incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because again, it's something that really we've not seen before.
Mm-mm.
And
At least a visualization of the Force.
Take out the whole like Crouching Tiger Matrix-esque slow-mo thing, which took me out of that fight. The rest of it, when it was back up to speed, my God, was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that the lightsabers. Oh,
It was so
More of
well
that.
done.
This
Yes.
is what I love about the going to the past of these things, because the further we went in the story as the timeline, like the originals and the sequels, because of how few Jedi or how few lightsaber wielders were there, the techniques were forgotten, and it was, especially in the sequels, a lot of brute force, except for that Snoke's throne room scene that was
Mhm.
really, really well done in terms of fighting. So seeing these very well choreographed fights, because that was also the thing that I love the most about the Clone Wars, because when it's
Mhm.
animated, you are not limited to anything. You can do whatever you want. And
One
it
of my
was
favorite fight scenes is
fantastic.
Palpatine, Savage, and Maul.
Whoa, yeah, that is just woof. Mine is, of course, Darth Maul, Ahsoka, season 7.
Oh,
I have
that
pop
too.
figures of that. It's just incredible. And I loved that in this show. In the times that we got lightsaber duels, they were really fantastically well done and well choreographed, that we actually got to see
And
much
push
more
limits.
than brute force. Exactly. They
and
showed us
And-
new things.
on
And
the limit
the-
pushing. So I just want to say that the last time that we get sort of full-on limit pushing is Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and they were actually
In
moving
live
regular
action.
speed. That was
Yeah.
them actually moving that fast. There's no speed up or anything. I think
Yeah.
Hayden just came out and he was doing like a commentary on it, and he's like, yeah, he's like, we as fast as you see us in the movie, he's like, we're actually moving that fast. They trained that hard for it,
Oh,
which was so
goosebumps.
cool. But speaking of Revenge of the Sith, though, the choreographers, however you want to say it, the choreographers, they were talking about this fight between Khmer and Soul, and said that they wanted to kind of mimic Revenge of the Sith a little bit as far as like spacing. Like it didn't matter if you're in a hallway or if you're in a room or if you're out in a big open space, the fight was going to happen no matter what. And
Yeah.
so they kind of pulled kind of a tribute to Revenge of the Sith for this fight as well, which I thought was cool. As I watched it again, I could see similarities. They're just not on a lava planet.
I saw similarities like straight away, but especially when they go through that tunnel bit. It was
That little
very,
catwalk or something.
Yeah, it was very like Revenge of the Sith, Anakin, Obi-Wan. But I think that again is the downfall of this series, because they're relying on stuff that's previously been done, and we've had a
No
lot
originality.
yeah, there's been a lot of, in air quotes now, tributes to the prequels, especially Revenge of the Sith. But we've talked about it on other recordings of this series. We can see the similarities, but in this instance with the lightsaber fight, it worked because of the fact if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like you can't just say, "Oh wait, hold on, we need to find a different venue."
Well, there's
like,
open space
no,
over
I'll
here.
go.
Come here. You wanna jump down there? Yeah. All right. Let's walk and hold hands as we walk down there. It's like nope, nothing stopping us here.
This is like this is happening, and so this is the one similarity to Revenge that I really did enjoy seeing.
I think the people who made the show were really a huge fan of the Revenge of the Sith, and they carried over a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas from that movie. And the way that they choreographed the duel was, at least in my opinion, was a very big positive on that side. That's what I wanted to say.
I agree. Like all the lightsaber scenes so far have been pretty solid on the show, and I think if May and Osha had a lightsaber, I think their fight probably would have looked a lot better, in my opinion. For me, maybe that's what took it out for me is that they had Soul and Kimir doing a lightsaber battle. Then they jump over to Osha and May. It's like, okay, we'll jump back to the lightsaber battle. I want to see this. So that could be another thing.
I'm glad that May and Osha didn't have a lightsaber, because again, we've had that in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin and Obi-Wan were fighting each other, as was Yoda and Palpatine at the same time, and it did keep cutting back and forth. So to see this now, where it's like, you've got a Jedi and a dark side Sith, whatever you want to call him, and then you've got two people trying to punch each other that are the same person. I think that worked quite well without it being a rehash.
I agree. Like, there's no reason. Like at this point, like based on those two characters, them having lightsabers would have just been out of place for them as well.
Yeah.
I think it was just the music and the screaming that kind of just ruined it for me. I think if they didn't do all the screaming, I think it probably would have been a little bit more enjoyable.
Thank you for mentioning the screaming again, because that's one of the things that I thought about, especially, of course, the flashback episode, that the Jedi were way too emotional and animated, and the voices were going high and they were grabbing each other and so on. And I was like, this is not the type of Jedi that I'm used to seeing. So it was, for me, even more glaringly obvious that they were in denial of what kind of institution that they've become. Because when I look at the next generation, like, especially, again, like Yoda, Dooku, Mace, then Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, they are not Jedi like that. You don't see them, like Anakin and Obi-Wan fight each other like all the time, but you never see it get physical or weird. That's what I found very odd in the communication of the other Jedi troop. That's what I wanted to mention.
I mean, Osha really isn't a Jedi, but I see. Because the other thing that I found awkward with her too is when Soul is doing his monologue to May, Osha walks up, picks up the lightsaber, and then tells him to stop talking. And then he keeps talking. And then she force chokes him. And now he's down on his knees gurgling. And she has to say, stop talking again. I was like, girl, he is gurgling right now because you're choking him. He's not talking. Like, you don't need to tell him to stop talking after you made him stop talking. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think the placing of that, I think it was unnecessary, but it was really cool though. Like Soul, solid actor, man. Like to just start talking, like just to be talking and then transition so quickly to like acting like you're choking, and then falling to your knees, and just everything about it was believable. Like I actually thought he was getting force choked. Like well done on the actor.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I saw him in Squid Games and he was a standout there, and the way he handled all of this role clearly with not such good direction and writing, I think he's a spectacular actor.
hmm
Yeah.
Then they did another reference to Empire Strikes Back with Luke in Cloud City with that little air duct. Because May's like, oh, I know how to get out of here. Like, I fell down this way. And this is my other thing with this. Okay, so Osha had trouble getting into the fortress or the castle, or whatever you want to call it, right? And then Khmer does his little magic trick and disappears. Osha and May both escaped that castle so many times to go to that tree that the only way they know out is the way that May accidentally fell.
Again, bad writing on that part. I picked up on that when we in the first flashback episode when we see them by the tree and they say that they escaped and or like got out. It's like,
Who left the door
how
open?
you,
Who let the
how
cat
you
out?
not remembering how you got out before? Like, it's
I
ridiculous.
thought that might be because of the explosions and so on.
So there must
Maybe
be
they
more
did not
ways out
know.
then. That should leave
Yeah.
more openings then.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it would be strange if there was just one.
And then other thing that I found a little awkward was like when Vanessa shows up and they find Soul's body. All the Jedi are just kind of just standing there. They look like they should all put their hands on their waist and look up in the sky like superheroes. Like they just all look so awkward just standing there while Vanessa is like looking around, feeling the force and having a Cal Kestis moment.
Yeah. That was weird. And the line about going 5 clicks, like, I know that's just a line, but it was like, that's great, but then spread out as well when we see that group of Jedi.
Yeah.
It's like,
And use the transmitter.
do not be bunched together. That defeats the object of trying to find someone if you're bunched together.
I I found that dialogue about her giving the order, find as many knights without like
Oh yeah,
making
drawing
it.
suspicion. Or
And I was like, well, what is this?
so, how
What
many
is
knights are
this?
involved in this now?
Exactly. And
Grab all the knights that are going to be on our side.
how can you just give orders like this? There has to be something else. There has to be like this is just I don't know. That
And
part I found really weird.
then there's only 2 other parts that I still have left in my notes that I'll jump to. Is them at the tree, and then Khmer's like, hey, if I can find you, so can they. And then they have like this whole dialogue, and then you hear Basil squeak or whatever. And then it seems like forever they're just standing there. I'm like, as close as Basil sounded and the Jedi are, you guys are taking way too long. All those Jedi should have already been there to arrest all 3 of them. But somehow they have like an extra 10 minutes or so. I felt the timing just seemed a little off there. Like they should have been a lot quicker, especially with them doing the hugging and repeating and making decisions about what to do. Like just kill May and just be off with it. And then the other one that I found weird was Mog's just a Padawan. Why is he coming up doing the arresting?
Is he though? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
he has the braid, right?
yeah,
But
he's Vernestra's
is
Padawan.
Yeah, so kind of, unless specifically ordered to not follow his master, he kind of has to.
Yeah,
So
because I know
that's why-
Jackie did the arrest earlier too, and she was a Padawan. So
Yeah.
it's like, why are the Padawans the one arresting people? It should be like the Mother Experience Jedi. It's like, okay, Padawan, go up and try and arrest him. Oh, okay, he just killed the Padawan. Okay, now we see his style. Now we know how to prepare to approach him. Like, padawans are just cannon fodder, apparently. I would have been okay if Maul got killed, though.
Yeah.
Sorry to the actor. Really, really am. I don't mean anything personal. I just hate the character.
Just on that one, again, it's down to the bad writing and the fact that, we have no idea who this character is. They kind of, I think one of the big downfalls for this is they've introduced too many characters at too many different times that nobody cares.
And then jumping back on bad writing and dialogue, I don't know what you guys thought of this one, but Osha's like, I don't want to lose you again. And then she's like, what should I do? And then May's like, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to train with him now. Like, not literally moments before, like probably hours before, she was sitting there. It's like, oh, last time to train. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not like my sister. And then now she's like, I really do want to train with you now.
That's the thing that is very weird about this show, because yes, they both have enough motivation to have made different decisions, but not two drastically completely opposite decisions in one episode as a culmination.
Yeah.
That is again another issue of the pacing, because we
And
have
directing.
had we have had the motivation. Yes, we saw Osha thinking and learning what she thought was the right thing, or that was not the case. And then May, the same thing. Their truths have changed, their situations, their realities have changed. We've seen it all throughout the season, but then they are still adamant on the way that they're going in the exact same episode 8, and then few scenes later, oh, I'm changed now. That doesn't work.
And then May's forgiven for everything because Vernestra is sitting there talking to her saying, oh, what's the last thing you remember? Well, they said I killed people or I killed someone, but there's just somebody I got to tell something to and I can't find her. Mm-hmm. Oh, you poor girl. You poor girl. You killed 2 Jedi and aided in the death of multiple others. But because you lost your memory, poor girl.
Yeah, that's just Vernestra being
and now you're gonna help me.
Yeah. Because she cleaned up the mess. Nobody actually knows that it's May who killed people. Because she said it's Soul. Yeah, exactly. So, clean. No problem. She knows that she has somewhere in her head, she knows the way to Kamir and Osha. So, why shouldn't she? I mean, what else was she supposed to do?
Sure. And then my last point that I've got written here is the end sequence. Literally, I found it so cheesy. And Kamir and Osha staring out into this water. Kamir just goes up, grabs her hand, and then they just sit there and do a pose.
I'm all I can say is that I'm jealous.
I thought it was cheesy. I was like, that would never happen in real life. If I was training somebody, I wouldn't just go up, walk up, hold their hand, and then turn a certain way so I look up in the opposite direction from them, expecting a camera to come and pan in on me.
You are forgetting episode 6.
Well, I guarantee I'm probably not. But you can run me.
He came out of the hot springs completely naked and also said to Osha, like, if you're not going to join me, blah, blah. So they set up this chemistry, whatever thing. So you should not look at it from the perspective of
I still think it's a cheesy. I still think it's a cheesy pose.
You are so
cheesy
right about that.
Cheesy way to end a cheesy series. So maybe it was perfect.
I found it very Rogue One-esque, where you've got the two main characters in Rogue One.
Mhm.
But there's
laying
also
on the
something
beach.
that's happening in the background.
Yeah, and I think that's again where this has failed, is it's tried to copy something else without having a plan B, which is a season 2.
Everything that we talk about and these references that are made to previous Star Wars media just makes me think they came into this with very few original ideas.
Yeah.
Just choreography and lightsaber battles. Pretty much it. And even those were copied. But the intensity, they did change it up quite a bit, though. That's what made them original on their own part. But everything else, I think the show could have been a lot better. I am interested in seeing a second season.
I
But
did
that
not expect you
interest,
to say this.
the interest there is very minimal. But it's just weird because all the main characters that we have in the show got killed. So all we have left is Vernestra and May, and hopefully not Mog. And then we got Darth Plagueis, Osha, and Khmer. And possibly Yoda, which I'm really hoping we don't ever see him again. I do not want this show to ruin Yoda for me.
I am willing to, again, like, if they are gonna put out a second season, I'm gonna watch it. There is no other way around it.
Just get rid of Leslie Headland. All I ask. Get someone better that knows what they're doing with the show and writing.
Us. Get us
They
to
don't
do it.
Yeah, we'll write
They-
second season.
I mean, they
I'll
don't
give
have to
Plagueis
get
a good story.
they don't have to get rid of her, but there has to be an external consultant like Filoni or Favreau to get things in order. That's
No,
what
I mean,
would
if she
agree on.
failed with the season, I'd be afraid that the pacing and second season would be very similar to the first season, as far as
I
pacing and writing
understand.
and direction.
I understand.
Just like they did
Definitely.
with Mandalorian, where they had different directors for different episodes. I think that's what they need to do with the seasons, because that's what they're going to do with their sequel trilogy. It's supposed to be 3 different producers for all 3 movies. It's supposed to be J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and then I forget who the third person was, but he ended up getting kicked out, and J.J. Abrams came back.
It was the guy who did the Jurassic World movies.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name, but yeah.
It doesn't work for movies, but it works well for a TV show, having different directors for different episodes, because the story's already written. The movies, you have to work a little bit harder to keep the story consistent, as we saw between J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, that it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
But Mandalorian, it worked really well. All right, guys, that's going to end this episode for us today. We have just finished discussing the Acolyte. So as far as this recording, there is no season 2 yet. So we'll keep you guys updated whenever we see that. And before we go, guys, just remember, always check in the description below where you can find a bunch of cool merch from entertainmentearth.com, or you can check out our Teespring if you like some cool shirt designs that we did, or checking out our social media to our Discord and our Instagram, so you can join a lot of the cool communities that are around. So until next time, guys, may the Force
be with you.
Always.